Welcome back to Chillporial. I'm your host, Brian, the Nerdporial life form himself. And with us, we have two guests. We are joined by the Sword and the Pen, Amber herself, and we have Dain of the Whitecloaks, the Bookcloaks. What do you call yourselves?
Disbanded.
Disbanded, more or less?
The show's over.
Yeah, true. By the way, there's Echo.
What? You're blaming Amber for this.
Totally.
I'm going to turn you guys down as low as I can. I think it's picking up my earbuds, your microphone. Sorry.
So ladies first, Amber, how are you?
I'm doing good. It was like 111 degrees today, Fahrenheit. So go ahead and convert that if you need to, Canadians. But I've been inside all day for good reason. That was the reason.
I just cooked my dinner at 111. So yeah, that sounds pretty hot.
Sounds accurate.
Yeah. It wasn't that hot by me. It was like 80 roughly, I think.
Yeah. Oh man, that's like
Midwest.
Winter.
Yeah. So and we got the author himself. We have Lord Dain Bornhold Esquire, a struggling writer. What's up, buddy?
I'm struggling. I'm trying to get through volume 2 with Amber. I just to be honest, we're still working together. I'm just so everyone knows, I am trying to do a Tolkien. I'm trying to get it all written before seeking publication. I think a lot of people in fantasy kind of don't realize that's what sets Tolkien apart. He was kind of able to do all that. Everybody who kind of came after him was really good at kind of creating an opening book. And there's just too many cases of either not finishing or it just finishes unsatisfactorily. So very few writers would basically have that luxury because it's either publish or perish. But I have a day job that buys me Legos and stuff. So for now, it's a hobby.
Yeah, taking on Dain's project was interesting to me because he wanted this to be like a partnership, sort of a coaching partnership, where he wrote his first draft of volume 1, and there's a plan for 5 volumes. And he said, I want to have you edit volume 1, which is only a fifth of the story, as best you can, and work together, sort of coaching sessions on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, just regularly checking in and covering specific chapters to improve how he thinks as a writer, and then develop the story. So it's almost like George R. Martin described his style of writing as gardening. He had certain things in place. He kind of knew where he wanted the story to go, but for the most part, he wanted to develop the story from where he started and say, okay, I'll figure it out as I go, just keeping in mind the characters' motivations and where I sort of want the story to lead to.
Broad strokes, basically.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Dain was doing. And I thought it sounded like an interesting project because I'd basically be helping to set the groundwork for a good story going forward, also helping him to develop as a writer, certain ways that you have to think about your characters and what you want them to do. So it was like I got to be a teacher and an editor, which is way more fun than just being an editor because all I do is get manuscripts, sometimes hundreds of pages long, and make notes in the margins for, 3 to 6 weeks. And then I send it back to the writer, and I either don't hear back or sometimes I do, and we have a couple video calls, but it's not this ongoing brainstorming session after brainstorming session kind of process. It's more like, well, there you go, I've done it all. Maybe I get to see draft 2, maybe I don't. So this was kind of like, okay, this will be an interesting project. It's a bit of it's like I get to be part of the process, which is a little bit more fun for me because I always like to put in my margins. If this was my story, this is what I would do. So that way the writer knows what I'm thinking. But yeah, that's kind of how I.
And I don't always take that advice like I do most of the time, but some of the times I'm just like, okay, well, I got this idea planned or whatnot. But yeah, in certain instances, it's been very collaborative. And that's part of the reason why I also reached out to Amber. Like I obviously knew of her via the YouTube first and foremost, because she was taking down Wheel of Time, which was like, that's what I was doing, but she was being nice about it. But what really came through in a lot of her videos was her genuine love of storytelling, but also how she would pause and stop every time she's making a critique and try and make the story better. So anybody like me can be a critic because, we know what we hate.
Yeah.
We very rarely have an idea of like, okay, well, how do you actually make something better? Starting from this, shitty position. And I thought, who better to help me out with my story than someone who is actually dedicated with like taking my crap and trying to make it better.
And that actually is the job of a good developmental editor will do that. They won't just call out what you've done wrong. They'll say, this isn't working. Here's why. Here's a suggestion for how you could fix it. The idea is to start with the least dramatic changes possible. So even in my videos, you'll notice that I try not to do, well, I would have done a completely different story, or I would have completely changed this thing. You want to sort of do little tweaks, if possible, to fix a specific problem. And then if it's something really big, then you go, okay, actually, this is a major problem. You can't have your character breaking the magic system because people are the believability is going to be lost if the magic system isn't consistent. Things like that. So you try to do the least, you suggest changes that are going to have the least amount of impact. Like basically, I'm just helping you fix a small problem if possible, and then work your way up to the big problems if they need to happen for the story to be successful.
Not that my characters broke the magic system, but there were times early on where Amber's basically telling me, dude, they're unlikable. They do this. It might make sense for the headspace that you're writing in, character doing this or that, but it will make them unlikable. And at this point in the story, you can't have a character that's just fresh introduced doing something like this. You have to change it. So hopefully I listened, because I didn't hear any complaints from you, Brian.
Which character is this?
So Henry. So that's my third character, although when I was writing it was a second in line. But he has those early chapters where he goes on his little adventure, and he gets separated from his friend and the orc attack. And I had Henry basically running off into the woods without a single thought for his friend, and then falling asleep. Like he was just tired and ran and whatnot. So on Amber's suggestion,
they were both in peril. Like they were both about to die, and then he I got away from the danger. I'll just take a nap now.
But that's how she framed it, and maybe in my own head, that's not kind of how I thought it sounded or read. Right. But that's why you have to have an editor. You have to have a second brain reading it for the first time and telling you, well, this is how it's making me feel. And at this point, I don't want to root for this asshole anymore. He just up and abandoned his friend. So fix it. And then it's the discussion with your editor and talking about, okay, what if I do this? What if I do that? So I redrafted it. That was a really heavily edited chapter as far as things go. I put in a lot more of Henry's thoughts and fears as it was going. And while the same plot essentially happened, like they were still separated, and the next chapter kind of picks up where he wakes up, instead of him, being exhausted and collapsing, he gets into his safe area. He's still kind of wounded, covered in nettles, and everything hurts. And he feels so awful about himself because he remembers then, like, oh shit, I just abandoned my friend. And I don't end with him falling asleep, but I kind of end with him kind of in a pit of despair.
I was going to ask, before we go any further, by the way, what is everybody drinking tonight? I got some bourbon. I got some Woodford Reserve because I'm cheap tonight.
I think Amber's got water. Iced tea? No, she's got a tea.
Tea?
Oh, right. You were highlighting that teapot set earlier. I hope it's nice.
I was. I love it. It's so cute.
I've got my
teapots.
Okay, I've got my German Stein.
That's a good one.
With horses, and I got a nice Grolsch inside here. So drinking beer.
Grolsch. Okay. All right. Well.
How about you?
I'm drinking Woodford Reserve, Kentucky bourbon, basically.
Ooh.
So it's the cheaper stuff. It's not the oak barreled or the.
I was just about to ask.
Yeah. So here's to Dains Volume 1. I thought it was an excellent book.
Thank you.
And believe it or not, I actually enjoyed this more than Knife of Dreams. So cheers.
Wow.
Okay, that's high praise.
Yeah. So I was going to ask the initial idea, like, how did you develop your initial idea, your setting? Like, I know we talked about when I visited you. I know we talked about, like, I know a lot of your setting is basically up in the mountains. So
Yep.
like the main setting of Daggers of Moonlight, at least Volume 1, is the Drake Watch, and the Drake Watch is up in the mountains, surrounded by other. There's other fortresses around it. There's like the Hospitallers, based off of the real knights. That are led by a paladin. There's what was another one? What was the other one? The Bastion, or was that the Hospitallers? Excuse me, fort.
Yeah, the Bastion is it's one of the forts. It's just what they name it. I also have like Eastgate Fort. In essence,
why don't you give a quick synopsis, like, so that way people who don't know what we're talking about can kind of follow?
Yeah, because I've been struggling to kind of like give like a 2 cents description of your book. It was tough.
All right,
I called it a castle fantasy, but I don't know if that's even a good way to describe it.
I would say take Pulp Fiction and Game of Thrones. Okay, so in essence, if you're familiar with Game of Thrones, every chapter is kind of from a different character POV, right? Mm-hmm. So and the chapters don't even have numbers or names of it. It just says Arya up top, or it says Eddard, or it says John, right? It just tells you who the character's point of view is and goes from it. I kind of like that because that basically highlights right up front, we're at a third person limited POV. When I started writing, I had no fucking clue what that meant. But as you get like more familiar with writing, then you're like, oh, okay, so it's a third person narrative. It's all from one character's head. And once you get the nuances down about what that means, it'll basically cut your head hopping out right away. And head hopping is where basically you give thoughts to every character as they speak back and forth. Some books it works, like Dune. A lot of it really doesn't, and it gets very, very jarring.
How did Lord of the Rings do it? But did he switch off between, like, I know, like, for instance, like the Mount Doom section, that was all Sam's point of view?
I don't think he was as explicit, but there was nothing like super jarring in that, I don't believe. Mm-hmm. But I haven't actively read Lord of the Rings to kind of assess what the POV was. I just know that Martin was the most explicit about it. Jordan is also fairly explicit. He'll do at least a paragraph break if the POV changes, but he also does kind of annoying things where he'll write like 3 pages before you really understand whether or not it's Nynaeve's point of view or Elaine's point of view, because, surprise, they're basically the same character for long stretches of book 4.
What's interesting about Dain's book is that it is, because I don't know if this is coming through. I'm just listening as what if I'm an outsider? My editor's brain is on while I'm listening to you guys talking. What you have is a sort of medieval setting fantasy that takes place in this castle in a sort of a valley, kind of on the edge of a mountain. It doesn't really matter. But you're looking at this same period of time from 5 different perspectives. One is basically the prince of this castle. One is kind of like, well, he's just a ward of the royal family in this castle. Then there's a lady's maid who's not very well liked by anybody. Then there is a very clever young man from the village. And then there is a young woman who is studying to be a sort of a physician. And she lives in the town, but she sometimes goes into the castle. And you're seeing all of these events. There's a murder mystery that happens in the castle at the same time as the king is about to return from war. So you're watching all of these events unfold from these 5 different perspectives, trying to solve the murder, also waiting for the king to come back and seeing that there are different events that are going to unfold as soon as that happens. And getting it from these different perspectives reveals different things about the events. And so it's fun because every perspective is giving you more context for things that you saw happen in previous chapters. So one perspective sort of fills in the holes or recontextualizes the previous perspectives. So it's fun in that way. by the end of the first novel, you've only got 1/5 of the entire story because it's 5 volumes, but we've got the first volume with the 5 perspectives only covering that first 20% of the story-ish. And by the end of that first one, though, you've got the murder mystery is solved, and I'm I almost
The
cursed.
whodunit is solved.
The whodunit is solved, but also the proverbial poop has hit the fan. It's the world has become something other than how it started, and
Yes,
so
it did.
everybody's roles started out one way at the beginning of the novel, and suddenly they're put into a new position by the end of the novel. So there's a definite journey. We're still kind of working on tweaking how everybody ends, not how they end. We want them to all end in the same spot, but how we kind of direct them to those specific ends. But I think it's a good start. It's not like you'll get to the end of this first novel and be like, okay, I can see everybody's going in a certain direction, and that's kind of how this works.
Okay, I got a question. So, I mean, so there's gonna be 5 volumes of this. Is there gonna be a chapter where everybody converges at one point, or at the end, or is that not on the cards?
That's so. I can go back a little bit farther into the genesis, and what I said there about this being George R. R. Martin or Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
The second half of that was Pulp Fiction. So Pulp Fiction are those intersecting storylines that kind of, have touch points with each other, and it's somewhat nonlinear. So that's another thing that I did, where basically I start off with a William story, but most of the other subsequent stories start a little bit beforehand. And because there's the big gap in William's story, they fill in that gap. So without spoilers, if you're going to read it, but William is like not there for a little bit, and then he comes back, and then a whole bunch of shit has changed, and you're kind of left wondering, because you're in his POV, what the hell happened over this period? And it's the other storylines that basically fill that in. So yeah, leaving that aside, sorry, what was the where? Are the characters going to converge again? So the other book that was probably very influential on me was Ender's Shadow. If you're familiar with Orson Scott Card and the Ender's Game story.
Oh, that's that's one of the Bean books, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I haven't read those. I've only read the
Okay.
first 3 of the main saga.
I think
Now-
that's the second one. Isn't it the second book?
So this.
Oh
the
no,
second
Shadow
one
of the
was-
Hegemon.
Yeah, Speaker for the Dead and those ones, those were kind of in the Ender saga, that because he leaves at the end of Ender's Game, and like time passes for 3,000 years or whatever, and then like it's a different timeline, sticking back on Earth, and then following kind of the geopolitics after the war against the buggers. That's kind of what the Bean story followed on. But Ender's Shadow was the parallel novel. And I love that idea of like, okay, I get to reread one of my favorite books, but from my second favorite character's point of view. And there are things in there where you're just like, holy crap, oh my God, he was actually smarter than Ender this whole time, and he was helping to manipulate him, etc. When you get back and study it, though, you find out there aren't actually a whole lot of touch points between Bean and Ender, either in either book, essentially. And that was a lesson for me too, being it's very difficult to have 2 characters with their parallel stories intersect a lot, because if you keep showing the same dialogue, the same conversation over and over again, it'll get tiresome very, very quickly. So I did have characters interact with each other, but I tried my best to limit it. And I'm hesitant to have all the characters converge back again until perhaps the ending, depending on who's still around. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it is the plan, but as far as kind of if I can sculpt it out naturally, it's like I've got my 5 characters kind of at the start. They're all at the same place in time and space. They have to spread out and go their separate way, but it would be nice for them to kind of come back at the end.
Yeah, because I'm just like, like there's just so much, like right away, like shit. I'm gonna literally say shit is hitting the fan when you get to the when you get to the end of each of these points of view, and it seems like they end roughly at the same time, I think.
Oh, should I get out my board?
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead and show them that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just put it in one of the comments because Summit was asking, is it non-linear? It actually all is linear. So it's the same time period told 5 different times from 5 different perspectives. So there you go.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
He's got the calendar up on that top row, and then underneath that, it's like, oh, and these are the things that each character was doing. But it's easy to follow. So when you read one perspective, the first perspective, you're getting the full timeline. Like, they don't use the same calendar that we do in this world, but it would be like starting everybody on July 1st and ending on July 30th. So everybody's story, as soon as you start a new perspective, it starts on July 1st and it ends on July 30th. It's the same period, just told 5 different times from 5 different perspectives.
With a little bit of leeway. I think some of the Charlotte story, for example, starts a couple days beforehand.
Yeah, but it's roughly the same period.
Yeah,
the same major
Richard
events.
Story, yeah, the Richard story ends a little bit earlier than everyone else's. But as I'm writing, I have this Excel file, basically keeping track of all of my days, what was the weather on that day. So I'm doing my best to kind of make sure that, hey, if it was rainy on this day for this character, it's got to be rainy for that character on that day. And the moon phases and a whole bunch of other things. Like, yes, I've gone into anal retentive levels of detail to try.
I like the fog.
Because when I don't do that, I tell them you should do that.
I only thought it was, but these are like the subtleties that, like, a casual reader and appreciator of certain, like, long form, they might not appreciate the effort that goes into it. For example, I think us as Wheel of Time fans all know the amount of effort that Robert Jordan went into, because people have backed out accurate calendars of his whole story. And the fact that it all falls apart as soon as Sanderson takes over, I think, is also fairly telling. People are able to detail exactly what happens on what day in his calendar by subtle hints and descriptions of moon phases that then absolutely cannot make any sense of it when Sanderson takes over in the final 3 books.
Speaking of moon phases, I know there was some criticism of the of the position of the moon, of the crescent moon. I tried. What'd you think of me? I was trying to recreate what you described
on the thumbnail.
To me.
Yeah,
on the thumbnail.
It's the moon on the thumbnail is actually early morning, so I'm wondering, why is this guy, like, doing his illumination by candlelight at 3 a.m?
Oh, I don't know. I shared a picture with my friend, and he created this out of AI. So I think
candles are expensive. I've been trying to get kind of how I want this stylized moon to look using AI, and they always get it wrong. It's not you.
Candles were super expensive
back in the day. Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. So what did they do? So if they needed light or something,
they go to sleep.
They just go to sleep.
They lived in darkness.
Okay.
Why do you think it was called Dark Ages, huh?
Oh,
not quite. Not quite.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
No, if the candles are made of beeswax, that's very rare stuff, or beef tallow or whatever.
Yeah, beef tallow.
Anyways,
so I got a question. So when you're writing the characters, are you like Robert Jordan, where you just become the character? If I remember correctly, I was reading, if he had a bad day, his wife would be like, "Were you Patton Fane today?" Or something like that. Is that you, or how's that work? How's that work?
So I think with the William character, I tried to write myself and just kind of dumb myself down a little bit, or or think back to times like when I was his age and kind of an idiot. With Richard, I kind of somewhat overpowered, so I didn't have that limitation for him. I wanted him to come across as basically very clever. And one of the things too that I noted, so a big difference between the two characters, or something that I highlighted on, is William loves to show off.
Yeah.
So he'll basically, if he's smart or thinks he knows something, he'll let you know that he knows it, right? And he lacks the awareness to know that that rubs a lot of other people the wrong way, right? People don't like being showed up like this. And Richard is more wise from this perspective, or has like a bit of a different background where he could do that, but he won't. Not because he doesn't want, to do the showboating or think that he's better than him. He doesn't want the other people to know how clever he is.
Yeah.
So he's kind of he's the player who plays his cards close to his chest, and William's the guy who likes to be like, see, pocket aces, who's going to bet against me, right?
Yeah.
So it ultimately very similar in terms of characters and types of intellect, but different approaches. And the difference could basically be perhaps one of wisdom, but it could also be kind of that it spills out of how they were raised, right? So Richard is a character who was raised in the town, was an orphan to start the majority of his life, apprenticed at a very young age to a master who wasn't the kindest to him, and kind of had to fend for himself and had developed street smarts. Whereas William's the exact opposite. He's basically a castle boy, a ward, and competing with, his friends who arguably have bigger titles than him. So he's reaching for something that he can show up Edmund and Henry on.
I was gonna say I was like, I didn't think Alistair was that bad, but then again, you did keep saying that he has the red nose, and I was like, uh-oh, that means he drinks a lot. Whoops.
Once a year.
Okay. I was like, okay, maybe I was like, are you hinting that maybe this character is abusive in some form or something?
Did you read version 1 or 2? I think I missed that at the beginning.
So Brian would have read the most recent version, so even more recent than what you read on the second go around, Amber. Okay. Because I put some of the fixes in that I had from alpha, beta, gamma, delta readers as well.
So basically, yeah. So what would I be, a gamma reader or something?
Epsilon at this point.
Epsilon, yeah. So I'm an epsilon reader. So everyone else did all the hard lifting. Ozzy, Pips, Alan,
so shout out to Gadfly Trip, Ozzymoto, LPK. Those were my alpha readers. They actually read the version before Amber even got involved. So I gave them a copy of after Amber's involvement. So hopefully they've enjoyed that and saw the benefits of it. But they gave me also some very, very great advice. So believe it or not, so a couple of things. You guys talked about shit hitting the fan at the end of the book.
Yeah. I
apparently had the shit hitting the fan way too fucking hard. Like it was, not a fan, but like a series of fans. And the feedback I got was this was escalating things way too much, because at the end of it, they seriously didn't give a shit about the murder mystery.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So at the end, they basically said, it's like, okay, so the big ending of your book is this murder mystery, but you have all these orcs invading. I don't care about this murder mystery anymore. I'm worried for the safety of the whole world because you have an army of orcs on the march. And I'm like, oh shit, yeah. I'm doing the classic kind of fantasy thing of escalating too fast. So I had to pare a lot of that back. And the other major change that I did, also in consultation with Amber, and I think it was after, I think Amber, you read Henry second as well, right? And then Charlotte third. So the two of the character POVs, I reversed their order. And part of that had to do with how a 5-act structure is done. And the feedback was essentially that Henry's climax is a better mid-episode or mid-play 3rd-act climax than the second one.
I'm with them there on that. I agree.
I heard that from everyone, but that's not how I originally wrote it. But this is the kind of high level, but also developmental feedback that I got early on from the alpha readers. Amber confirmed it, and it's been confirmed basically by every reader I've asked since then. They all agree that, yeah, the Henry story going 3rd makes a heck of a lot more sense than going 2nd.
What made you think that the Charlotte point of view would have made a good 3rd act ending?
Well, didn't you say it sounded pretty horrific?
Well, yeah, but I mean,
It's also
it didn't have, but it didn't really have that epic. It didn't really have that. I mean, it was horrific, but didn't feel like an epic.
that's fair.
ending.
But I should also say that, and again, this is as a writer when you basically do everything on your own. I had first kind of developed or thought about this story as a Dungeons and Dragons campaign of what I like to play, which is essentially no wacky races, as realistic as possible, young boys, and they all kind of have their different roles, where William is the guy who's got to be on the wizard trajectory. Richard is the guy on the rogue trajectory, and Henry and Edmund are both fighters of kind of different ability, but they have a castle, they have adventures, they go on. So I had William and Henry in mind as characters long before I even came up with Charlotte. And the other trepidation I had is I wanted to write 2 boy characters and then maybe dabble at, can I even write a girl? So that's kind of why I wrote her third.
What would Eleanor be in this game, this Dungeons and Dragons game? Obviously, Charlotte would be the healer.
Yeah.
What would Eleanor be? Court intrigue? What is that? Is that a class or something?
I don't know. So Eleanor is also the 5th character. Fully admitting, I didn't think of having a 5th character until I started having this other ideas of like, okay, I put a lot of the number 5 in a lot of things. I've got 5 seasons. I've got 5 gods. I've got everywhere I can. Like, I don't say something is about half as tall. I say something's 3/5. So I kind of have throughout this world kind of this all
motif of 5
operating on number 5. So I'm like, I need a 5th character. And for a long time, I thought of having actually the 5th character be the one who did the murder or responsible for it. And then I read The Way of Kings and hated it and realized the last thing I want to do is a meta mystery that depends on a POV character. And again, this is what comes later when you learn about the writing process, but the tacit promise that you make as a writer writing in that point of view style is that the reader knows everything that the character knows.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like cheating if you're doing the limited omniscient perspective, which means I know everything that this character knows. I feel everything that this character feels. And then they reveal at the end that they've been keeping something from the reader. It's a very tempting idea to do that.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately, usually it feels very disappointing. You can do it with I'm sorry?
What's an example of that type of thing?
That's The Way of Kings, because it happens 3 times. So every single character in that novel does this. So you have Kaladin, who becomes a slave in chapter 2, and you're reading this the whole time wondering, it's like, when I'm going to find out how this guy got enslaved? And then the reveal is he just didn't want to think about it the whole time.
Oh.
So it wasn't satisfying. And the other characters were like that too.
Or think about it like when you see characters that suddenly start acting very strangely and you're going, what the heck is going on? Why are they behaving this way? And then at the end you find out, haha, we were just putting on an act to trick the bad guy. Has that ever happened in any stories that you've read or that you have watched in movies or shows? And then you get to that and you're like, wait, so I didn't get to be in on the secret act that ended up this way. It seems like it's very rare that you find it done well. I think, why is Kaleidoscope in my head? Did that happen in Kaleidoscope? I can't remember.
Sounds like something a modern show would do.
Yeah, well, I mean, but Kaleidoscope was fun. And it was kind of like the 5 different perspectives stories. But
is that a movie or a show? Kaleidoscope?
It's a show. It was a hit when it came out because it did that very well. But anyway, just somebody just put in yellow. That was one of the colors. They divided the different perspectives by colors. If that's what you're talking about.
He might just be saying hello in his weird idiom.
Oh, could be that too.
I was like,
I don't remember which one is yellow. It was like yellow and blue and red. I don't know.
Yellow, amber. No.
But it is super tempting because you think you're being clever when you're doing this to your reader or your audience. But in the end, when you think about it, all they did was just play out a fake story for you to be invested in and then tell you it was all fake.
I don't like that.
Yeah, and
That
that's
sounds
kind of
awful.
how it works when you've got a narrator who you're in their head, you're feeling what they're feeling, you're thinking what they're thinking, and then at the end you find out, like what you just talked about with Kaladin, oh, he just didn't want to think about why he became a slave. So we never got to find out what it was because he just decided he didn't want to think about it. It feels like it's a cheap trick to prevent the reader from knowing information that they would know. They would and should know. And yeah. So it in the end, it's very difficult to do it in a satisfying way. Very, very difficult. I honestly can't even think of a single instance where it was done well, where I go, oh my gosh, that was the best. Like, can you think of? I can't think of one.
So this is why, at least early on in planning this, like I started already writing Richard, so that's the fourth character, and I still wasn't fully decided on who the fifth character would be. I knew kind of I needed one, but the more I thought about it, I'm like, I can't just have the culprit be my fifth character and then do this rug pull at the end, because that would be unsatisfying. So who else is around there? And I thought, okay, well, maybe a handmaiden in the castle might be interesting. Maybe especially if she's different from the first girl that I did, and I could write her more like a guy, because she is, she's not your typical lady. Is kind of one thing. So I think
I was going to ask, is she the tallest? Is she the tallest of the point of view characters?
Close to. I haven't fully done like that. She's not taller than Edmund, but yeah, she's probably taller than the other boys.
Is William and Henry? I think those are the only two. So right, because
William Henry and Richard's a bit shorter, but yeah, she would be taller than those other two. But she's not like the tallest person you've ever seen, right? She's not the mountain that rides.
Or as tall as like your Wheel of Time characters or something like that. I was going to be.
No, she's not. She's not.
Is she like W? Is she like WNB? Is she like Landfair tall, like 5?
No.
6 feet or something? Or
she would be about 6 feet, which would be tall, especially in a medieval setting, especially for a woman. Like that's even tall for a woman today.
Because I remember like she I think she was like she was always the tallest person in the room, except for Edmund. Edmund's like the only character you described as like taller than everybody else, I think.
But also keep in mind with and this is little minor spoilers for people who haven't read this far, but she's infatuated with Edmund. So, and naturally part of that is at least women tend to like men who are taller than them, or at least that they won't look at men who are shorter than them. So for her, that's a very limiting set of who she'd be interested in.
That's too true. So
Amber will confirm.
So I encouraged Dain to make her kind of boy crazy in that sense, because you want to add as much variety as possible with your characters, make each brain function differently. Like for me, when I got to Richard, it was so fun because he was so clever and he was always trying to think of things, how to get advantage of certain situations. Everything was about, how do I get ahead of this? How do I do, and so for me, that was the most refreshing perspective up to that point. So by the time he got to Eleanor, which is the final perspective, I kept on saying, like, how about this? She put the rose-colored glasses on, like she's really romanticizing the situation, or she goes back to like how she likes this guy, because it was just something so different from Charlotte, who was very purposeful, and even though she had sort of an almost romantic encounter every once in a while, it never became anything. She was always like, I'm studying to be a physician, I'm here to do my job, I don't really have experience in this kind of thing. And I thought it would be fun to just have something really different like that. And I think it's created a few opportunities in volume 2 now for her, because it's not something you do just to make an interesting character either. You don't want to make character choices that aren't very useful for their development in some way. And now she's in a position where it can be used against her. It can be used to help her. She can use it as a tool. It's you want to make it part of her character, a significant part of her character. And it becomes very significant by the end of volume 1, even. It's like, wow, that didn't go the way I thought it would. So, I don't want to give away spoilers, but yeah, keeping things interesting. That was actually one of my, so at the end of a developmental edit, I will give an editorial assessment, which is kind of these are my general thoughts about your whole novel. And for Dain, because he's got these 5 different perspectives, I did a separate one for each one of his perspectives. And one of the things that I did in that was talk about how you want to really make your characters distinct from each other in your next draft. And even the minor characters, I thought that he had 2 sort of clever older men characters that spoke in the same way. This is standing out to me. I'm thinking of Simon and the parson, right?
Yeah, Eustace, Parson Eustace.
Parson Eustace. So these were 2 separate characters, and they had very similar ways of testing other people around them to, like like a teacher would. Like, I'm trying to get you to think more.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same strategy. And so I was encouraging, make them very different from each other, not just physically, because they were decently different physically, but make it so that they don't have the same strategy. They should try to encourage wisdom out of people in different ways and make them distinct. When I brought up examples like in Harry Potter, every single character is so distinct that they're almost cartoonish. But to start out that way and then tone them down to make them more realistic is actually a good strategy, because it makes your characters distinct. Give each one a specific way of speaking so that when you see their line, only one character could have said this. Harry Potter is just the best way to do this example. I could pull out any line.
How would you go about that, trying to explore ways of making characters more distinct? Because that's something I've been thinking about. I'm like, how do writers do that?
You could picture an accent in your head. Someone speaks with this type of accent, or has these types of sayings. Like think of Bael Dolman in Wheel of Time, right? Oh, it's going to do the Ileana accent. He never says don't. He says do know. And there's a whole by my aged grandmother. Like there's a lot of those that you can do with. But Amber's right. It's basically, if you start off with the most kind of over the top, it's easier to kind of pare back and tone back. And I'll be the first to admit, when I started writing Parson Eustace, I was like, oh, cool. I got Simon back again. And I basically wrote the same character. She just picked up on it.
A little echo, but yeah.
Oh, sorry. I forgot to mute myself. But so one of the things you also want to keep in mind is what kind of character you're writing. So, for example, William, and this is something that you do in later drafts. So first draft, okay. When you're discovery writing or pantsing, it was called discovery writing when I was in school.
Fly by the seat of your pants.
Everything has got different names and terms now. I don't really care about that crap. This is the concept I'm talking about. It's when you are writing and figuring out the story as you're going. You don't plan it in advance with an outline. You just like, okay, I've got this character and he's a room. What's he going to do next? That. When you're discovery writing your first draft, just consider it a trash draft. This is a draft that I'm not going to go back and edit a whole lot except to make it readable. And then I will look at it as a whole once it's done, the whole draft, the whole trash draft. And then I'll go in and do major fixes. That's usually your developmental edit, where you find things like, oh, your character's arc is not logical, or you've broken the magic system here, so we have to completely redo your ending. Big problems like that. And then you get finer and finer and finer. So a later draft for Dain is going to be going in and looking at different perspectives and saying, how does this person describe things? So William is a bit of a dandy. So he's going to be going back in his drafts of William and having William regularly, and this is not just William in his brain, but also the narrator for William, noticing things about how things look, whether they're put together. Oh, like, fine velvet and, this delicacy that we only get here. Well, I guess that would be more like Eleanor. She's a foodie. But looking at things from specific perspectives. So the way that things are described goes like that. Also the way that you think. Richard is the best example of you doing it just instinctually, because he was constantly thinking about how do I get out of this? How do I take advantage of this? How do I make money from this? How could I set something up that will serve me better in the end? I would say his perspective was probably the most distinct out of all of them on the first reading, for that reason alone, is because he was a strategist constantly in his head. And you want to do that with every single one of your characters. The way that they regard somebody. So 2 characters describing the same person would be very different. Eleanor would not describe William the same way as Charlotte would, or as Henry would. So you want to, and they wouldn't even notice the same things about them. So you want to keep that in mind, even in your narrator's voice. And you can get really good with it and say, okay, I'm even going to change my sentence structure, my narrator's rhythmic patterns in their syntax. I want to see some differences. Like maybe Charlotte is super dry because, or not Charlotte, Eleanor. Dain and I have discussed this, but Eleanor is a bit, she's got autism, I guess. She's not good at picking up on people's expressions and what's socially
spoilers
appropriate.
Amber, spoilers. But it's not full autism,
but she would look at the
other
world
characters
very differently.
Other characters noticing that about her and kind of diagnosing her and why she's awkward the way she is. It's beyond kind of just her appearance and whatnot. I thought it would be a fun kind of way to play, but I mean it's difficult to do, especially when you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants or doing discovery writing at the outset. It's very difficult to do for secondary, tertiary characters, because when I introduce a new character, sometimes I don't know how long they're going to live, or how significant they'll be to the whole story. So why come up with a very distinct voice or background for a character if they get off in the
and the risk you take with going in and editing a character and like giving them a personality is, I want to off this guy, and now I want them to live. I've gone back and I've changed their personality, and now I see they have to be a character that lives. So there's always some. There are many rewrites in books. I don't think people realize the ones that you find on the bookshelf in Barnes and Noble, they've gone through at the very least 5 major rewrites.
Unless they're romantasy.
So I've heard that they're not going through as many rounds, which is kind of scary because it means that they're putting out just more and more garbage. I was telling another YouTuber like a few months ago that I read a medieval, it was a historical fiction before electricity, and that didn't exist, and yet the narrator said a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, a light bulb? I was like nuts. I was like, well, how did this get past all those rounds? Who didn't pick up on the light bulb in the medieval fantasy? So yeah, but basically the point what I was trying to make about Eleanor is, and that you change the narrator's voice, maybe her sentences are not as poetic, or maybe they're more poetic, because that's like one of her things, is that she's a bit more of a poet than most of the others. You think about these things in later drafts, and that's when you apply them. You go through it at that level and you say, okay, I'm going to do a round where I'm looking at all of my second tier characters and I'm making them more distinct. And that's the whole purpose of your rewrite. And then you'll go back and do another rewrite and say, okay, now I'm going to go through and make sure that my second tier characters, each one of their lines of dialogue is super distinct. So every time this character talks, it's like when Hagrid talks, that's Hagrid's line, because he mispronounces words and abbreviates words all the time in weird ways, so that if you were to just say this person's dialogue, everyone would know that's that person's dialogue. See, the funny thing with my epic history series, every chapter I introduce, the first thing I determine is how and when they die. I
was going to ask, Dain, you that, like, how did you know, like there was one character I was like not expecting to die. Well, actually, I actually thought he was going to die. And then you're like, nah, you're trying to misdirect me. You're like, nah, he's going to be fine. And then I get to a certain point. I'm like, wait a minute, he does bite the dust. So I'm like, and I think and you know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to say his name. Huh? You know what I'm talking about. Some guy
did I lie to you?
Huh?
Did I lie to you and say, no, he'll be fine, just to keep you reading? Or
Yeah, something like that.
No,
He'll be fine. Yeah, he'll be fine.
Did you send in private chat who you mean?
Huh?
I honestly don't know who you mean.
Here.
Oh, yeah, no, he was totally dead. I don't think I misdirected you on that.
I was like, well, because I said this character was kind of like the Obi-Wan, the mentor,
Obi-Wan dies.
the mentor archetype and all that. So I was like, yeah. So I was worried that he was going to, bite it early. And you're like, nah, he'll be fine. And then he ended up biting it anyways.
Okay, maybe I totally lied to you about that. Then. That's entirely possible.
I was going to ask what. Like, I was going to ask, like, what, by the way, by this character in particular, I was going to ask, is there more scenes to tell with this character, or was that one scene with, in the epilogue, basically a finale, like, this is it? This is it, and I'm done. Like, this character is gone.
He's dead, but he has a brother.
Oh. Okay.
Which he says that in the he explained. Remember, he talked about how his brother was like.
Is it the parent of Charlotte and her brother, or is this another sibling?
It's a sibling of Simon. Okay, we're talking about Simon. But yeah, he's got an older brother. But he'll show up.
Okay. All right. I was curious. I was curious, like with certain characters that bite the dust. That like if there's going to be a point where there's more scenes with them, and like it may be like in a prologue or an epilogue or something like that.
Well, there are more scenes with Simon, at least in the first volume, but because he's a secondary character and you see it from a different character's point of view, so you got a lot more of him.
Yeah,
but at least like. Now going forward, all the characters have now progressed beyond Simon's demise. So like,
because I was wondering if there was anything that happened in between. Let's say a certain he shows up at the end of a certain story, like out of the blue, and then he vanishes out of the blue. So I'm like, is there more stuff that happens in between, or does his fate happen like right after that encounter? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
It's all in my timeline, but so if he's back in any of the other characters' point of views, it would have been before he escaped or took William out of the castle. So Dain has gaslit and girl bossed so much he has forgotten what gaslighting and girl bossing he has done. Probably.
Yeah, Gadfly's writing his own book, his own series too. So I can't wait to read
it. Gadfly was one of my early readers. I don't know if he even picked up the edited volume afterwards. So it's a lot better now, dude. It's a lot better. So I don't know if you have the time to reread it, but we fixed a lot of your problems.
So so we talked about the 5. We talked about the 5 points of view. We talked about like how they intersect.
I could also explain also some other part of my thinking too. Goes back to kind of the 5-act structure, the 5-act play. So if you're familiar with Shakespeare, a lot of Shakespeare's plays are 5 acts, and there's usually a system to it, right? Where you basically start out, you're introducing the story, rising action throughout the second. Then in the 3rd act, there's a climax or a mini climax. This is when Mercutio dies in Romeo and Juliet. It's when Polonius gets killed in Hamlet. There's a bit of a lull in the 4th act, and then there's a ultimate climax and resolution in the 5th act. So it's not your 3-act structure, which is basically just rising and then falls. It's got 2 dips to it. And I thought, since I have 5 characters, each will have an act within a novel, and then the 5 novels as well. What I want to do is replicate that on the micro as well as the macro scale. So every book, I'm trying my best to basically sculpt it so that the first POV is, let's say, the introduction again. Second POV is rising action. The 3rd POV should end in what is kind of a mid-episode or mid kind of story climax. The 4th will dip down a little bit and maybe reveal some more of the information, answer some of the questions from the earlier part. And then the 5th fifth act should basically be the climax of the novel. And then similarly, every novel in my series is going to be like this too. So I'm working on book 2 or novel number 2 right now, but novel 3 is going to have, I'm going to try and have it being the most epic. And then if I'm saving anything like a large time jump or something like that, I would do that in the 4th novel. And then the 5th novel basically just needs to amp everything up to 11, like Spinal Tap. And have that basically be a 5th act resolution, but kind of save the best for the very, very last, if that makes sense.
You know what's funny is after you're just finishing all of Eleanor's point of view. I read all of that within a day. So I was still on Richard yesterday. I finished Richard, and I
was worried if you're going to finish.
I was like, you know what? I was racing against time. That's how epic the preparation for the stream was. I was racing against time to finish it and get this discussion going. So, but I wanted to say I was thinking of some interesting parallels with other series, like for instance, the Lady Anne character in Eleanor's chapter, the Baroness. You know who she reminded me of in believe it or not, in Game of Thrones, of all things, because of how she felt about her husband and what she didn't like about him. That was basically Lysa and Jon Arryn. That was Jon Arryn is dead in the beginning of Game of Thrones, and Lysa is Catelyn, Lady Stark's younger sister. And what's funny is Lysa had the same exact issue with Jon Arryn, except Jon Arryn was much older than the Baron. So
yeah, no, and I
thing with the rotting teeth. That description, I was like, bro, this is Lysa Arryn right here. She's a wicked. It's too bad you didn't have a moon door for her to get shoved out.
Spoilers. I don't know if I brought, but now at the end of the day, maybe I absorbed all that stuff through osmosis or whatnot. Maybe I stole it subconsciously. I don't recall this as a description about Jon Arryn in the Game of Thrones books, but having a rotting tooth was actually it was less common in the Middle Ages because it wasn't that high of a sugar diet. But if the guy wasn't eating very healthy, if he drank a lot of wine, which has a lot of sugars in it, etc., perhaps he had bad teeth. But that would be like the number one source of bad breath back in those days, was something you should have got knocked out of your mouth.
Because I swear that was the same. That was like the same exact complaints. I think this was in Storm of Swords. I don't think this was.
All right. Well, I'll have to double check. But this is also kind of why I don't want to publish. I don't want to get sued by George R.R. Martin. So if that's actually something I stole,
about something like that,
you'd be fine.
It's not even a trope. That was just something. That was just something. That was just like you said. It was probably a subconscious thing.
Well, it actually is. In I would say more like the historical romance genre, it is a trope that arranged marriage. I ended up married to this old guy, and then you typically end up with and then this young strapping guard came along. So it's more common in other fiction that maybe you haven't read, but I didn't find anything that felt in his novel like it was a direct take from something else. I mean, no story is going to be completely original. Everybody's going to have very similar ideas. It's the execution, though. Have you ever seen this combo before? Have you ever seen this story? I'm not going to spoil anything, but like the grand story. Have you ever seen this grand story done before? So it's all in how it's done at this point.
And to a large extent, I have actively tried to put in a lot of fantasy tropes into the novel. Like you noticed it immediately.
We have similar terms. Like
is Simon the Obi-Wan character, right? Yes. Like or the hero's journey. You have to have the mentor. The mentor has to eat it.
He doesn't have to eat it. He just has to not always be there, and that way it's sort of like the fledgling has gone off on their own, and now they're being tested by the world.
But also, like, one thing that I struggle with, and Amber's helping me out with too, definitely, is the characters need to exhibit agency. Early on, I think I can get away with it because they are just kind of taking their step out into the world. But in part 2 that we're working on right now, it's definitely an issue with what I've written so far. So I've been working through some edits, that give Eleanor a lot more agency in her second part of the story, because if she's a passenger in her own story, because she is just caught up in events, and you'll admit, like, there's no real way around that for Eleanor in her opening story, because how can you not be a passenger with what happens to her? But when
but there's ways to make it, and we did this with Richard. The draft 1 version of Richard was different from draft 2 in that I was like, we need to make, was it Richard? I can't read. Anyway, I remember saying, this is a thinker, and he becomes a passenger in his own journey. At one point, he basically, things start happening to him, and he just has to kind of go along with it, which we already saw happen in the beginning with William. I said, you don't want to do this with any of your characters. They need to be actively making choices that have consequences in their journey. Or they need to be in Richard's case, he should be strategizing, how am I going to get out of this? Or how am I going to get information out of these people, even though I'm kind of under their control? And that should be, there should always be something that the main character is doing that is their decision, that we will see consequences of, even if it's an assumption about a character. Like, I'm going to assume this about, like, Eleanor, for example. She makes assumptions about specific characters, especially right near the end of her story. Like, oh, I think this is this person. Like, I think that's what their role has secretly been all of this time. And then at the end, does that change how things end for her? And so, you want to always keep these things in mind, make sure that their decisions and their assumptions and their thoughts are changing how they react to things, or how things pan out in the story, and are consequential. Otherwise, it becomes very boring. You can be reading something and it's like, all this stuff is happening. This character's literally just sitting there while stuff happens around them. Why is that? That's not interesting to read. And it's something you don't really pick up on when you're writing, because you're like, dang, it must be intense to be in this situation. But when you're reading, it's different. There's a different experience for the reader than there is for the writer, which is why everybody needs an editor. Like, if I was writing a novel, I would need editors just as badly as the people who come to me needing an editor, because I can't see things from a reader's perspective, because I always know the subtext. I always know the things that I didn't actually put in words because it's in my head, but it's not in the reader's head.
So when you say passenger, that's basically you're talking about agency. So anytime, like, a character, like, let's say, for instance, William's in the dungeon. Oh, wow. Okay, Williams.
You're not really spoiling stuff by saying he's in the dungeon. Then
he's the early perspective. Yeah. So go ahead and talk about him a little more.
So Williams in the dungeon. He doesn't know how he got there. There's like, obviously he goes from hearing, he goes for hearing, like, overhearing like a conspiracy, and all of a sudden he wakes up in this thing. So there's something happened. There's a time gap, but there's a point where he gets rescued and he escapes the dungeon that he's in through help with someone else. So does that just simply so because of that, I mean, he still makes, I mean, I hate to quote the movie, the song Free Will by Rush, but even when he goes along with it, he's still making a choice to go along with it. So doesn't that count as agency, or is that?
In part, so there are ways you can, I don't want to say mask it, right? But if the character is not having any thoughts about it, then you don't feel like he's actively choosing it. If you just go, okay, I'm going along. So perhaps I frame this in a different way. I don't think that, for example, The Eye of the World, Robert Jordan's Eye of the World, I don't think that novel would have worked had the characters not been separated at Shadar Logoth. I think people would have gotten bored with that story if Moraine and Lan and Nynaeve, the whole party was together and they went to Camelin all together as a party with Moraine as the leader. Mm-hmm. Even though, thinking about it, we're like, that would have been so nice. They would have avoided all those dark friends. They would have avoided all the harrowing journey, etc.
It would have been boring.
Oh, but it would have been fucking boring because Rand, as your main character, is still playing second fiddle. He's like, what are we doing now, Moraine? What are we doing now, Lan? Okay, he's not making any choices. The novel at that point needs to basically have Rand as a protagonist. And then this is also when you get Perrin and Nynaeve's POVs as well. they need to basically step up and make decisions, active decisions, go to the fore. It's difficult to do when you have kind of 5 young protagonists, as I'm doing, and I want to throw them kind of into off the deep end, right? I want to upset the world. I want to rattle everything. I want bad things to happen to them early because that makes them more sympathetic. But I can't keep doing that for very long. They kind of
You can, as long as it's some, like, they're already doing something. They have a purpose. Like, let's take Charlotte for an example. Okay, so she's trying to become a physician. That's what she wants to do, and she has good reasons for why she wants to do this. And whenever there's a situation where things are not within her control, like a big disaster happens, well, she could just stand there and somebody could throw a person who's injured at her feet, and she's like, okay, I guess I'll work on this person. Or she could go into the fire and save somebody because that's what her instinct is. That's more interesting to read than she's somehow in the infirmary and people are bringing her patients to look at. The same thing with like William. He is following along with Simon, but he's not sure what happened. And is Simon actually here to rescue him? Or is he part of a joke? Or is he a traitor to everybody? He doesn't know. And so he's got to try to figure that out and then decide, do I keep going with this guy? Should I leave this guy? And opportunities come up where he can maybe go and do that. And those thoughts cross his mind. Maybe I should do this thing. And then he'll get a new piece of information that changes what he can and cannot do. So basically keeping your character in I'm trying to figure out where to go, and I think I want to go this way, and they're trying to go in that direction, and then throwing obstacles in their way that change that trajectory or maybe just make it more difficult to keep going. It's a very situational thought process. So depending on who your character is and what they're doing, you're going to tackle that situation differently. Simon being the passenger, like what you're talking about, he didn't really seem to have much of a choice. He woke up in a dungeon not knowing why he's there or what happened. Like, hey, I overheard this conspiracy and then I got basically fell asleep mid just standing there, and now I'm in this dungeon. What happened? And then somebody says, hey, I got to rescue you. Like, this is not a good situation. It's like, haha, is this all a joke? He's going along with it, but he's starting to think maybe I shouldn't go along with this. And we're seeing opportunities for him to maybe separate himself. And then he gets a new piece of information that makes me go, well, now, okay, that option's out. Can't go do that. So you're constantly keeping him moving. He's constantly trying to figure out where to go and what's the best option. And even though he seems to just be following Simon, he's also questioning, should I be doing this? So
more so now because of Amber's advice. So it was a lot worse before she got her hands on it and was able to help out with a lot of this. Because at the end of the day, there are a lot of instances when you're writing a character where they are kind of a slave to events as you've plotted it out, because there is a plot and there are other characters, and these are only kids as my protagonists. How much influence do they actually have on the events of the world? But if they're actively thinking about it, if they're actively kind of trying to come up with, well, what can I do? Can I do this? Can I do that? More inner monologue. There are ways to make the characters seem like they're having more of an influence among themselves than maybe they actually are about the story. But it's something to kind of be aware of. So another example of this, Star Wars. As soon as Luke Skywalker reaches the Death Star and separates from Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Does Luke Skywalker stay as Obi-Wan told him to do with Han Solo, keeping an eye on the Millennium Falcon, let Obi-Wan go shut off the tractor beam? No, he finds that the princess is in a cell and scheduled to be terminated, and he takes the initiative. So he's separated from the mentor, but he has to go off and basically go do his adventure. So that's kind of what I keep reminding myself of. It's basically at a certain point, the character, once they're separated, once they're kind of on their own, once any excuse they have for kind of being on rails is done, the training wheels are off, they have to show initiative. They have to kind of be the active ones in their story. I don't know if it fully comes through in volume 1, but I'm keeping in mind, this is the first 20%. This is the opening act. This is like the first 5 story beats to save the cat for
I was
every
literally
character.
just about to say that you're also at such an early stage with all of these characters that you're not going to see that really happen until volume 2.
Yeah. So when I kept falling back into my old habits in volume 2, Amber was quick to point that out and send me some notes. Basically, don't.
Your character is being an idiot. Stop that.
She's dumb. I don't like her anymore. Okay. I gotta fix that.
I try to be more articulate, but basically saying that when it's appropriate. So, yeah, you want to keep your character directional. I don't know how else to say it because there's so many different ways that you can be directional with a character. Even if they are seemingly a passenger on their own journey, the direction could be in how they think about the world. Like Richard, for example. He starts to realize that maybe my cleverness is not always the greatest thing ever. I'm not very experienced in the world. You want to just keep your character active in some way, whether it's with their thoughts, whether it's with their actions. It's got to be active in some way.
I love hearing internal monologue, especially Richard. Well, same with all of them, maybe all of them to agree.
So here's a fun little side story too. I intentionally kept a lot of internal monologue out of my Henry section because I thought, what better way to write someone who isn't as intelligent as someone who has no inner monologue?
So Henry is basically your I hate to say this.
He's an NPC.
He's a retard maxer.
Well, I actually encouraged, I still do encourage Dain not to do that, because even if you're not intelligent or not cerebral, you still have some thoughts in your head, and maybe they're more focused on the present and what is in the near present. You know, Richard thinks long term. Henry is just like, what's in front of me, what's got to be done. And that may come across to some people as lacking intelligence, but it's just a certain kind of intelligence. He'd be a good hunter, probably wouldn't be a good strategist. So, you know,
but in essence, like, there was a conscious thought behind it, but it was definitely noticed by Amber and other readers, alpha readers, kind of in the early Henry stuff, that they didn't like it because they lacked kind of the perspective or the inner monologue that were present in the other characters. So they found him harder to follow and what his decisions were. So it was an idea on my part. It didn't really last. There was a lot of things that I would try and think and experiment with, that at the end of the day, like, trying to be clever wasn't actually that good of an idea.
But it's not a bad idea to try stuff, especially in like a trash draft. Go ahead and try it out and see what reaction you get. And I try to preserve the idea. If it's not being, that's why I'll often ask in my notes. Well, and in this case with Dain, I could just ask him in our weekly-ish coaching sessions, like, what did you intend with this? What were you trying to do with this? And he'd be like, okay, then what you should do is this to fix what you were trying to do, in order to accomplish it. It's always things are gonna come across to a reader differently than how you intended, because you are in your own head. You know everything that the reader doesn't know. You feel everything that the characters feel. You know what's happening, and sometimes that doesn't come across with the way it's written. So that's part of my job, and also beta readers. It's so good to have your manuscript read by multiple critics, because I won't catch everything. That's why I've told Dain many times, like, I hope you hire other editors eventually, because at a certain point I'm going to know this material well enough that I will be missing things, because I will know what's coming down the line. So you need a fresh brain to consume the story and go, actually, this thing is not quite working.
Do authors have more than one editor? I mean, obviously Robert Jordan's wife was his editor for the entire Wheel of Time series.
And she kind of quit halfway through. Let's be honest.
Did she?
Usually, if you go to a publishing house, multiple eyes are going to be looking at that manuscript. It will go through, like I said, at least 5 rounds of editing, and I would say probably at least 3 different editors, because no one person is going to catch everything.
Yeah, and the longer the story, the more editors probably. That's also what I would imagine. So
do they go through the entire story? Do they break it down to sections?
Oh,
And they
yeah.
each cover a section.
It would be like different jobs. So you'll have somebody whose job is proofreading. That is the very last read through to find all the tiny little mistakes. It's like, is this perfect? Is it ready for print? Before that, you'll have line editors. That's somebody who is good at looking at your language and making sure that it's all consistent. And then there's formatting, making sure somebody goes through and looks at the formatting. Then, like my job, developmental editor. I would say get as many eyeballs on your work as possible and just get their feedback. Honestly, a lot of self-published books.
You have to do this in order, right? Because
I just gave you the reverse order.
Yeah, there's no point in getting a developmental edit after you've proofread it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because one of the developmental edits might be your ending doesn't work, rewrite the whole ending,
Right. So it's basically a reverse pyramid. You have to start with a developmental edit, which is why I reached out to Amber first and foremost. And I know you've pointed out a couple of spelling mistakes here or there. I think you gave me a new one. I think it was only 2, right? There was a crossbow bold with a D.
Just because I'm like, I haven't marked anything in a while. Here you go. I don't like the formatting of this.
But a John with an H and a John without an H. Yeah, okay, that was a bust on my part. But
I don't know how I just saw that. I was just like I gotta let him know.
Two little mistakes in 300,000 words. I think I'm feeling pretty good about myself, bud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I'm feeling pretty good about Grok. That's what I'm feeling.
You know what? I mean, everybody is like, "Oh, don't use AI." Like, I'm actually okay. So even though, these language learning, what is it called? Language learning models have kind of put me out. I've lost a huge number of clients because proofreading was like my bread and butter. I could just go through and like go right through it. And especially when I get myself into proofreading mode, like you have to switch on a different brain for that kind of editing. It's more robotic and less creative. That's all gone. Like I lost so many clients because people could just go to Copilot or, now there's Grok and, Claude, like all these different language learning models that can do proofreading. You don't need a human being to do that, really. You can even program a style sheet into a language learning model and it'll catch all of the mistakes. So a style sheet is when a book in a book series, have you ever read a book series and every single book in the book series seems to follow the same rules for formatting and grammar and they always use dashes instead of semicolons, that kind of thing.
Wheel of Time. He always says shown instead of shined.
Okay, so
Sadine side R are always italicized. Like it's so
that's
remarkable.
Those rules are unique to the Wheel of Time novels, and there will be different rules for a different book series. So like Cormac McCarthy, no rules, no punctuation whatsoever. And he has ideas, I think, in his head of how long can a sentence be, so that it has a specific kind of a rhythm.
So that's not just Blood Meridian; it's his other stuff too. That's like that.
Oh yeah. Have you not read Cormac McCarthy's other books? Like
no.
So that's his shtick, is like no punctuation. Every single novel is like that.
And he likes the word "and" quite a bit.
Yeah. Oh, it's a rhythmic thing. It's a reading rhythm thing. But every book, if it's a book series, all the books in that series will follow the same style sheet. That way they're consistent. So you can program that into a language learning model and it'll make sure all your novels follow that same style sheet. And that's a line edit thing and then a proofreading thing. So you do it at the line edit level and then the proofreading level in formatting. But it's a very useful tool. So what I was getting at here is that, use it. I think you should use AI to help you learn, fine tune and make nice, your novel if you can. Like, I don't see any problem with that as long as you are the one going in and making the changes. Have the language learning model find the problems and then you manually go in and fix them. Don't just be like, oh yeah, go edit my novel. Boom, done. Now I can print it. I guarantee you there's going to be like the prompt left in the text.
I didn't write that.
Yeah.
How many? Let that happen. There's so many times that I was testing out ChatGPT early on. So this is way before even letting other people read it. And I basically cut in as much text as I could, which is about 800 words in the free version. And then I give it the instructions. It would ignore it and basically continue writing my story for me. Like I was seeing it have hallucinations in real time. Now, I didn't take all of those ideas, but damn, were they good. No, kidding.
No, but it basically just, the idea is it's okay to use, even though, like I said, it has put me out of work. Like I've lost a big source of income because of it. I see it as a huge advantage. I think it should be used. I think people should use it to help them with their writing. How did we get to this subject anyway?
Different stages of editing, the editing pyramid. And
yeah, we're talking about we got into proofreading, and then this kind of killed your bread and butter, your proofreading, basically.
It essentially goes, you write your first draft, and then here's what I would recommend. You write your first draft, which I consider the trash draft. Then try to edit it yourself once so that it's at least as good as you can make it on a single pass without putting too much effort into rewrites, because you're going to drive yourself nuts if you've done that, like killed yourself doing that, and then somebody else comes along and says, actually, you got to change a lot more. Like, just make it legible. Then you get some feedback, and that can be a group of friends as a critique group. It can be developmental editor, whatever. Somebody people who understand big picture storytelling first, so that they can tell you your story works or your character works, or, big ideas need to be solved early on.
Or then, if it doesn't, she can tell you how to fix it, which is what Amber does really, really well.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Then you would go in and you can do that many times if you want. After you've done that developmental level, then you get to line edits. You're like, okay, I've made it as good as I possibly can. Now I want to make sure that the language flows nicely. And then you'll do the formatting to make sure that all of your dialogue is good and that, this looks the way that I want it to. And then finally is the proofread. And I would recommend doing a couple of proofreads, like have more than one person going through there, because nothing worse than you get the print and you're like, I put a period here and that's not supposed to be there. It's stupid little things like that. But at every single level of these editing, even if you hire a specialist for each one of those stages, they're going to cross over into each other. Like Dain was saying, I sometimes do like line edits and formatting edits for him just because maybe it's irritating me and I don't want him to do it anymore. So that kind of thing will come up at every single editor you hire is going to cross over and do a little bit of something other than what they were hired to do. But
So line edits versus formatting is line edits deals with like the overall language of the writer versus formatting where it's
don't have your character say light bulb went off if you're doing a fantasy setting. Or
that's honestly, that's developmental level.
That might be even developed. There's also copy editing, which is there's potentially a little bit higher up where guys would or editors would go through and make sure that there's internal consistency in the story. So especially for a story like mine where there's intersecting storylines, if a character's in two places at once, or supposedly, they would catch that and be like, hey, I thought that so-and-so is supposed to be here this day kind of thing. Is that an issue? And then, you'd have to make sure that I didn't do like a big
and that's actually something you would want to do before your line edit. Not everybody needs to do that. It really depends on what kind of story you've written.
Yeah.
When I say that you can do multiple rounds of developmental editing, like in my head, copy editing to that degree is a developmental edit, because I should catch that. Or people who are looking at the story as a whole, you look for things like inconsistencies. So that would be in the very early stages of your writing. Line edit is basically just making sure that your language is good, making sure that you're, let's say, you're not putting in a whole lot of description of a room, or spaces. So we need more visualization, things like that.
That there's good balance. So there was a good Brandon Sanderson lecture. I don't hate the guy entirely, just his work.
No, his lectures are really good.
No, exactly. But he kind of breaks it down. He kind of breaks it down in like there are four main types of prose when you're writing, right? So there's dialogue, there's description, there's navel gazing or introspection, or that italicized thoughts, and then there is action or beats, so people doing stuff, and everything kind of falls broadly into one of those things. But you can't neglect one over the other, and you can't have one that stands out. So a lot of people, they might get irksome with Robert Jordan because he goes on a description sometimes inordinately long, right? If he's describing the full room of all the furniture inside of it, and if it's not important, why the hell is he doing it? And therefore, it can seem indulgent. It can seem like purple prose. I have a tendency on the
no
opposite
idea what
side.
you mean.
Yeah, exactly. I have a tendency to write dialogue to the exclusion of all other things, and it's only through editing passes that sometimes I'll break it up and actually have some action beats put in there. So blocking, setting the stage, what are the characters doing? So instead of just banter back and forth, have someone go to a window and look outside it, or stroke their chin, or reveal some emotion as to how they're saying. So instead of saying he said smugly, you say instead, he said stroking his chin and taking another sip of wine, right? That you show, you don't tell. And so you need to have good balance between those four, and you need an editor to tell you what it is you're doing at each point in time, because it's you're in your own head as a writer, but you want the reader to have a good experience too, and they're always going to be different. But yeah, hopefully I know enough about this so that when Amber comes back and says you need more blocking, I go, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. This is 2 straight pages of dialogue back and forth without dialogue tags, and so far the characters haven't physically done anything. All they've done is chat back and forth like they were on a stream with you.
And it's totally okay to
when is it
draft
better
that
to
way.
tell than to show? So
Never.
I always, whenever I think when I always think show don't tell, but is there ever a point in writing where it's better to tell and not show?
Yeah. Yeah.
When it needs to get done quickly.
Okay.
I mean, you wouldn't want to show a character going about their day doing mundane things, but you can say that, they spent the last 3 afternoons sitting in the library waiting for today to happen. That is something you would just tell. You don't have to show that unless there's a lot of introspection that goes on during that. But I was going to say something about when you write, and like in Dain's situation, for example, his dialogue's very good, but
Yes,
he doesn't put in the tags. He doesn't put in the blocking. Sometimes he doesn't even describe a room. And I'm like, they're just in the Matrix talking. But the dialogue is so engaging that I can tell that's where his brain went. And so he just did this. And it's my job to say, okay, this is good, but now let's add in this other stuff. When you do your first draft, don't worry about that other stuff. Just write it. Just write the stuff. For him, writing the dialogue kept the story moving. It was engaging. It was interesting. So you just, vomit that out as fast as you can, so that way your brain stays in that creative, building the story, building the character, moving everything forward process, and then save the stuff that you're not so comfortable with for later. That's usually how this gets done. A lot of writers, a lot of people think that writers just put what you read is what they started with. It's usually nowhere even close. I'm sure there's lots of writers out there who don't even bother with dialogue tags and descriptions in their dialogue. They literally just write out the dialogue like a script and keep moving so that they can get the story done, because things like that get fixed in the rewrites. But your question was about, what was it again? It was...
you already answered it about
okay.
telling, not showing, because I was asking about showing, because usually it's always better to show, not tell.
Yeah, except if you want to go fast. That's kind of, as Amber said, like you spent 3 days in a library, nothing happened, but you just want to build up that incentive. Like, tell that. You don't have to show 3 days passing in a library, right? So if it's not important to the story, at least that's kind of the rule that I've had. But all the time, where it's just basically and this partly ties into what they say, rules about adverbs. That can seem as some of the lazier way to basically tell rather than show, is every single dialogue tag that you put in an adverbal description of how the words were said. He said angrily. He said wistfully. He said, so anything with an ly ending. If you do it too much, people will pick up on it.
Yeah.
So it's more clever to use word choice in order to convey that. So instead of saying, "Oh, that's interesting," he said sardonically, actually say something sarcastic, right? Rather than keep the dialogue kind of bland and lean heavily on the adverbs.
Right, sure. So interesting. Like just writing that out. You don't have to say how they said it. There's only one way to read that.
Thanks.
Yeah. But that was the only example I could think of right off the top of my head. I'm sometimes draw a blank when I'm trying to come up with examples. You're talking about showing versus telling.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know that there's a lot of people who don't like freaking hey, what's the name? Come on, Kvothe and
That's just
Waystone
me.
Inn. What is the name of that series? The
Painkiller Chronicles?
The
Painkiller.
Painkiller Chronicles.
Yeah, I'm the
Patrick
one who
Rothfuss.
hates it.
Patrick
Okay.
Rothfuss.
One thing that he does very well, and I think it's why his scenes are really engaging, even though oftentimes it's like it doesn't seem like this is an important thing that's happening. But he makes his scenes very purposeful in achieving multiple things at once. So there will be progression in the scene and like, okay, he has a problem. He needs tuition, like how's he going to pay his tuition? So every scene that he puts in will be about that. How is he getting closer to or further away from providing his student fees or whatever. But he also has to accomplish two other things. So he's like every scene has to accomplish three things. I think he said it was like the progress of the character, the plot, and then also revelations about the world. So he will only have scenes that do those things, even if it's very subtle. And I think that's a good way to think about your writing, is that everything that happens in your story, don't describe the thing that's just doing one thing. Make it do multiple things. This is one of the reasons why I actually like editing, what's it called? And a lot of people will debate me on it, but the Avatar: The Last Airbender live action, because they have to crunch so much story into the live action, their dialogue and the things that they're doing in each scene is multitasking on multiple levels. I don't think everybody catches it. So it feels like this doesn't feel right. Well, it's because it's doing a lot of work. But if you can do things like this in your writing, where every scene that you choose to have happen is accomplishing multiple things, that's a very effective way of writing. Don't overdo it, but don't spend too much like, oh my gosh, this is 100% subtext, or oh my gosh, there's like a million things that are happening with this one scene. But that's another way to know when to show versus tell. You show all of that, and you dive into the multitasking of scenes with showing, and then the between stuff where you're like, well, we have to explain that he went to the other side of town to meet with some guy and pick up the money that he owed me. You can just say he went and did that. There was nothing eventful that happened there. He went and did it, that one afternoon. And then the next most important thing that happens, that's the scene that we sit with.
Okay. All right.
So it's like prioritizing scenes that are important to character, plot, world building.
Yeah.
I've got those 5 things that I talk about. World building, character arcs, plot, themes, and tones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
sorry, that's something I talk about a lot on my channel, is those 5 things. Like those are the 5 parts of a story. So.
But it's also, there are ways to get around the whole telling thing. So for example, not from my book, but again, back to Wheel of Time, when Moraine gives the story to all the villagers about the history of Manetheren, that is pure telling, right? That is world building kind of 101, but it's done within the narrative so that it doesn't feel like it's telling. So it's not
because
like
it's the people are learning that story for the first time as well.
Right.
It's not like she's going, as you all know, and then
Exactly.
saying the thing. They didn't know what the context was. So she was explaining to them, this is your history. And suddenly it made everything that just happened to them feel different.
Yeah.
Multitasking. It was a multitasking bit of...
Absolutely. So you could tell, like, it would be a very shitty read if it was a narrator's voice, either omniscient or if Rand had heard this 5 winters ago and he was recounting it for you, the reader, in his head, then it would feel like telling. Because the story of Manetheren is told to kind of a crowd of people at the inn after the battle, and it ties in with the theme. Like, you have to do it in order for later stuff in the story to make sense. Like when Agelmar says, "Oh, I wouldn't doubt Manetherin's blood," like those guys were hardcore kind of stuff. Like it kind of needs to come in there, but it's a way of showing it rather than telling. Well, you're still actively telling it, because Moraine is basically telling a story, right?
Yeah.
But it's so there are ways to disguise your telling. With a couple of little tricks here and there. Don't use them all too often, but there are ways around it.
Actually, I actually really enjoyed that part of the world. I like it. I like when stuff like that happens within the story.
I have like a chapter and a half early in the Charlotte section where she's literally listening to a story.
I like the play. I love the play that you did with Henry. That play. The thing that you did, your proudest section of that story was freaking awesome.
Amber made it better too.
Iambic pentameter, just like Shakespearean verse.
Amber pointed out Shakespeare loved to put in his metaphors, and I didn't have a single one. So first thing I did was like, ChatGPT, give me a cool metaphor about lakes and stuff, and in iambic pentameter. Yeah, and I slotted that in there.
And then just like I was
didn't
just
copy and paste, did you?
No, I didn't. He gave me ideas.
I was just expecting the play just begin and end, and then Henry would walk off or something like that. No, more than you literally pulled a Julius Caesar for real in the play or something. So.
Yeah, no one expected it either, but using the play stage direction. But
I like that. And I liked your what was it? Your prologue for Eleanor. The forget it was a parable. It was a parable about three warriors looking for wanting to defeat death, and they find death, and then the whole point of the story was that death found them, basically. Because
that's literally stolen from Boccaccio, who literally stole it from someone in Italy from 1,000 years before that.
Who is this again? Boccaccio.
Boccaccio. So it's
Boccaccio?
It's the Decameron.
Boccaccio. Boccaccio.
Yeah.
Giovanni Boccaccio.
The Decameron, and it's
okay.
The Deathly Hallows stories in Harry Potter are also loosely based on this as well, right? The three people who tried to cheat death. I think in the Decameron it might be only two that cheat death, but I mean,
1350s. Wow.
Yeah,
this is up there.
But I mean, I framed the story that's being told in that prologue as kind of an old folk tale, so it kind of makes sense that it comes from there. And then the three adventurers who all kill each other in different ways, as opposed to the one, but the person bringing the wine and poisoning the others, as kind of the way that they got back. That's completely copied. That's copied.
Is this anthological, like let's say the Canterbury Tales?
This predates the Canterbury Tales, and Chaucer actually was largely inspired by Boccaccio to write the Canterbury Tales.
When did the Canterbury? I thought the Canterbury Tales came out in the 1200s. Oh, it's 1400. Oh, okay.
1400 exactly. I think.
Middle English. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Well,
so yeah, no, I am stealing from the best.
I did not know. I did not know about the Decameron. I'm looking at it right now. So, all right. Well, so that was interesting. I mean, I did take a picture. So that bookshelf that's behind Dain, I took a picture. I was like, I gotta familiarize myself with some of these works. Like what's lurking in Dain's head that's giving him all these crazy awesome ideas and all that. Sorry,
yeah,
I know I'm glazing you, but I really enjoyed this book. What can I say?
Well, thank you. So I don't know. This is we're coming up on an hour and 45. I know Ollie's probably going to need to go out. So I don't know, Brian.
Do you need to? All right, we can.
Yeah, if you have any like kind of last questions, or do we want to ask chat, see if they have any final questions, or?
I think he just asked you a question though. He wanted to ask more about your inspiration, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
obviously Decameron was one.
Okay. No, so I think how to frame this the most polite way. Tad Williams, who wrote Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, great series. He kind of had a perspective about fantasy lit. I don't think he was the biggest fantasy fan overall. If you really study what he did with that, it was kind of a postmodernist Lord of the Rings. And there is a bit of postmodernist subversion in the whole themes or thoughts or whatever of the whole story. But what he noted, and it's an observation that stuck with me, is that fantasy readers tend to be the most forgiving readership base that exists, which is basically, so long as you give them a battle with some magical creature or something every 10 chapters or so, you can indulge what you want to write about for those other 9 chapters. So really, he's using fantasy as a genre or whatever as a vehicle for expressing other thoughts and ideas that he wanted to talk about, which for him were things about like colonialism, migration, sins of the past and the future, a modernity that's in decay and preserving things of old stuff. So the whole history of the Hayholt Castle that he has there and the different cycles, etc. He's got a lot of thoughts, and it's all kind of packaged in there. Some of it doesn't actually fully tie with the end of the story too, as well. It's unfortunate.
It seemed like a lot of those characters that that live in that castle. I forget the name of the castle in the
Hayholt.
The Hayholt represents one of the different themes that you were bringing up. Like, I mean, I thought it was interesting that you have 5 different characters and you have 5 very different themes. And I remember when we were hanging out, you were telling me like Williams is freedom, Charlotte's is justice, Henry's is honor, Richard's is wisdom, and Eleanor's is power.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to do, in essence, is with these characters, is because it's in fantasy, I could take Eleanor's section and I could have a deep exploration about the meaning of power. What does it mean to be powerful? So you can, and I borrow or steal
it means better to be feared than to be loved.
Right. So is it better to be feared or loved? Is an age old question.
Is that straight from the Prince? Is that straight from Machiavelli, or is that from something else? That's
from Machiavelli. Was the first one to distill that and provide an answer that was perhaps anti-Christian at the time.
Obviously,
but people were asking that question long before, and were answering the other way, that the proper Christian thing to do is love. And Machiavelli's called it out and said, bullshit, let's cut through the chase. Yes, in an ideal world, yes, but in the world that we live in, it's not the case. So it still remains a debate to this day. But there are other things associated with power. And this is a later dialogue or later discussion that I put in the Eleanor section, where Eleanor gets all, I could say, uppity with a certain character and accusing him of doing bad things. And he turns it back on her and says, do you think it would be any different if you were in my shoes? The only way to be in my shoes is to be willing to do these horrible things. That's the nature of power.
I was surprised it was coming from that particular character too. I was just like, whoa, this is wild. I was going to ask about that particular character. Was he, now the dialogue that he said, and I'm not going to spoil who this character is, but you know who I'm talking about because so was he aware that he was on borrowed time, because he's like, take care of this person for me or something like that? Did he know that when he was drinking the wine, excuse me, not at that, he was going to
not at that point
kick the bucket?
No, not as far as his untimely demise there, but he'd already sacrificed his soul, so to speak. So he knew he was on borrowed time. He wasn't going to end up. He'd lost some of his will to live as well.
Okay,
but he fully expected being condemned and like he was going to take that.
Okay, now I got a question about that, I have a question about the rules of this world. I don't know if that's something you want, if you're comfortable.
It's probably a read and find out.
So like a further read and find out. So not everything was fleshed out in this first.
Oh, it's fleshed out, but I don't want to spoil anything for you.
All right. Well, then this will be an offline thing then. So, all right. So I mean, we're about 1 hour 40. We're about 1 hour 45. So I figure, let's.
But anyway, that's where I'm kind of going with a lot of this. So it is a fantasy, but it is going to be exploring ideas about what is justice, for example, or where does our sense of justice come from. It can seem kind of high-minded and lofty because Plato in the Republic was trying to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to be honorable? There are different ways or whatever perceiving what is honorable or the correct thing to do. I can throw in even things that are like quasi-representative of like those junction games or whatever with the train switches or whatnot, and just highlight to a character, oh, you think you would always make the honorable decision? Well, what about this? Save one or save many?
Needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Oh my gosh, I brought up Star Trek in this.
Yeah, but it can go into that.
I approve.
With things about freedom. Fuck, I was just honestly watching The Matrix yesterday or the other day, and Morpheus talks to Neo basically about the nature of the Matrix and like, well, you took the red pill. It's like, well, now that you've seen you were living in a prison, could you go back to living like that, right? How important is it to you and your psyche to kind of be free? Even if it is a comfortable life, could you basically live inside a prison? So those are kind of ideas as well that I want to explore. The nature of freedom, why freedom is valuable, and explore that through what William has to go through. So it's really, I've isolated my themes. I've tried to make them as lofty and large and broad-minded and not necessarily tied to fantasy in particular, but the reason why in a fantasy genre, other than the fact that I like it, it is probably one of the most forgiving readerships out there who will indulge you with your kind of philosophizing for long reams of time through your characters, so long as you give them an orc fight every once in a while, right?
We got one orc fight, and that was in the middle act. So I thought it was cool. I liked it. I liked the fact that the orc was way more menacing and tough to kill than, let's say, a Trolloc.
Yeah.
So it just like this, the next time. So when you had more than one orc in the later part of that act, of that section, I was like, oh, how are they going to do this? I was asking myself, like, do they have what it takes to beat these guys? But then you have Marlowe just like kicking complete ass. Like I want to see more Marlowe, and you said Marlowe's going to play a bigger role in the next volume. And I can't wait. I like Marlowe, like, so yeah.
Without his nose,
especially without his nose.
Okay, all right.
But I like that. I like it when I like it when you establish something, and there's a good chance that or there's a possible chance that the characters could lose or something could happen on their favor, and it just keeps me, the reader, interested and engaged because of that. So,
well, I hope I don't disappoint. And also, I'm not going to publish until I know that I don't disappoint. Which is, again,
I want to help. I want to help you. I want to help you in any way I can.
Well, I was telling Dain that he should show the manuscript to people, even of volume 2. Like, don't just keep this between us, because other brains will come up with ideas and help you to come up with ideas. Even if they're not ideas that you take. Like somebody's like, oh, well, what if you did this with the character? Even if you're like, no, I don't want to do that, it might make your brain switch and go, wait a minute, but I could do this thing. And it may have nothing to do with what's just suggested. It's just having creative minds constantly rolling an idea around and playing with it helps a lot. Yeah, and like what you're trying to do with your thematic writing, which was a discussion we had in book 1. It was in volume 1, where I was explaining about how, the high level writing typically is very thematically focused. And you don't want to write your story saying it's going to do this thing with this theme. You can start out that way, but if suddenly your characters take it in a different direction, you may need to go in that direction. Or maybe they start moving in one direction and you're like, I really want to stick with this theme. Well, talking to other people can help you figure out how to make that happen. So don't be afraid to talk about your stories with people.
It's not the talking about that, it's the selling it that I get nervous about, and basically putting it into a form where I can't go back and change it, because well,
you're doing it right. You're doing the whole story first. So.
Well, what I don't want is to be tempted to basically go back on that promise, because I promised you, I promised a lot of other people, I promised myself that I wasn't going to. But when I've got people like Brian and I've got people like Alan telling me this is fucking awesome, how do I get this and how do I get my friends to read it? It's like, yeah, I'm sorry.
Don't do it, because we're in volume 2 and we've already talked about stuff that in volume 1 you're going to go back and change. And one of my first notes to him in the editorial assessment was, do not come back to volume 1 until you're at least 2 more volumes complete, because you're just going to edit the hell out of this thing, but then you're going to get to volume 4 and be like, shoot, now I have to change the whole beginning. So just don't. Put it aside. Do your trash drafts as far out as you can, and then go back and decide what you're going to do.
Yeah.
I did make some suggestions, and Dain completely just he's like, oh no. He's like, no, they're fine. He's like, no, they're fine. I don't want to walk people. I don't want to hold people's hand the entire time. I was like, okay, fine, fair enough. It was the Henry, it was the Hal Henry thing, and I was like, I didn't even know Hal was I know Harold and Henry and was thing. I didn't.
Yeah, he was wondering for 2 chapters who the fuck Hal was.
Yeah, because I was just like, yeah. So I was like, maybe have some retard a character that doesn't know or something, or ask that question, and you're like, no, I don't want to hold the.
I still
hand,
don't.
So, yeah, yeah. So
that's so weird.
It's nice to have to talk to the author as you're reading it. It was a brand new experience for me. Like I can't talk to George R. R. Martin or
make it try. Just hit him up on Instagram. Comments on his blog.
He responded to me once about something. He responded to me once on his not a blog once. So yeah. So we did engage briefly. Right. So
your claim to fame.
There you go. So, but I can't talk to Robert Jordan. Robert Jordan's been gone for almost 20 years now, and I couldn't ask him about what he means about this or something like that.
Actually, I wonder if it's 20 years today.
No, 18. He died, or 19. He died in I think it was September of 2007.
Oh, okay.
So close.
Yeah.
Enough.
Okay. I'm thinking more maybe when he got diagnosed, because I remember that day more vivid. Anyways, yeah.
Didn't he get diagnosed like right after that interview he did with that one guy? Like right after
it was very close
published Knife of Dreams.
Yeah, it was right around that time, which was also around summer of 2006. So, anywho, all right, I got Ollie looking at me, wondering when I'm going to get out of here. So
okay, so let's. All right, so let's. Okay, final thing. All right, so Amber, thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming on the Chilporial.
Yes,
this was your second time.
Sure.
We still have to do a follow-up, just to you and me, talk about writing and maybe more Star Trek and things that we like and all that. But what's going on with your channel? What are you up to? What are you doing?
Well, I mean, my channel's been a bit on hold for a couple of reasons, mainly because I've started I work for a construction company, so I've been doing a lot of work for that. I also had a huge pile up of manuscripts I needed to get caught up on. Now I'm caught up on them, except for Dains, which I can take my time on, which is kind of nice. Yeah, so not a whole lot of videos came out, but I'm hopefully going to be able to continue doing Avatar: The Last Airbender, get through all of that, and then I also want to critique, or at least play the game. What is it called?
The Stanley Parable.
The Stanley Parable. Everybody wants me to play the Stanley Parable.
We're going to try and get Amber. We're going to try and get Amber doing a video game, because a gaming stream seemed like a cheap and easy way to get content for her channel, do things more regularly. And this game requires absolutely no skill whatsoever to play. and it's probably right up her alley as far as an investigation of storytelling in video games.
I have that. I have that on Steam, so I'll have to play it. Somebody gifted it to me years
Get
ago.
the ultra,
I've never
get the
played
ultra
it.
deluxe. It's absolutely it's wonderful.
The Ultra Deluxe Stanley
Yeah,
Parable.
everybody was pretty crazy about it on my Discord, saying like, "Oh my gosh, yes, that's the one. Like, you should definitely do it." I'm like, oh, "Okay, if everybody's saying it's great, you should check it out." I am still reading Wheel of Time, by the way. Oh, I finally know what Dumais Wells was. Everybody's like, "You're
You
gonna
got there.
love
So you
that."
finished,
I
so you
did
finished
that.
Lord
I
of
did it.
Chaos?
Yes. Was that was the one?
Yeah, that was
What's
the ending
name?
of
That
book
was
6.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was it. So I finished that one, and then I
swear to Chilporiel, or you will be knelt. Sorry, I just had to say that.
well, I taken a little bit of a break from reading, but that will be the next one that I go back to is Wheel of Time, getting the next volume done, and so I'll hopefully be able to do some videos on just the books. You know,
Crown of Swords was surprisingly really good. I really enjoyed Crown of Swords.
It's a good Matt book. If you like Matt as a character, it's one of the better ones.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
everybody loves Matt, and I'm going like, yeah, he's cool, but like, where does this like obsession with him come from? You know, I don't know where that is. So maybe
Matt has a boss fight that he nearly loses, and it was one of the more entertaining sections with him in Crown of Swords. So you'll know when you read it. So
Nice.
all right. So anything else
For me and my channel?
Yeah.
I don't. My sister really wants me to do one of those romanticities that's going to be adapted.
Fourth Wing.
Sarah J. Maas romantic?
Oh yeah.
Because like she's like, all your videos where you like make fun of stuff is so good, and she's like, and I just know that there's going to be stuff to make fun of in that, and I'm like,
I agree with your sister.
I know, but it's draining to watch stuff.
I'll read it and watch it with you if you're going to take that plunge.
I heard it's like basically erotica. It's like, oh my gosh! All right, like it'd be fun.
I'd honestly though that this is what's fascinating to me about it as well, because I think Hilary Lane in the second story pointed this out about the plague of erotica, fan fiction, fantasy, or whatever. But she noted quite astutely, I think, that men consume their erotica very visually. Women like to read it. So what's the target audience you're going for when you take something that is literary erotica, romantasy, and you're adapting it into a visual medium?
Well,
right?
I think.
Are you going to try and get the dudes involved in this? Like, who the hell is going to want to watch that?
Well, no, because it's not that women won't watch that. Like, okay, Outlander is the best example of like an erotic fantasy.
Good point.
That women watch. And you know why? Because that guy that they cast is gorgeous. I will watch that wedding episode where it's basically just a whole hour of them banging. Like, I will watch it and enjoy it. But there's the romance is there too. So the prelude to the act is what I think draws women's attention. You know, like let's build up some anticipation and you know, make it like we really want these two characters to get together. This is why like men's pornography is typically you just get to the banging right away, and the girls are like, no, give me the prelude. I want the stuff that led
just
up
like just like Wheel of Time season 3 episode 1. Tickle.
All right. All right. Thanks, Amber. Dain, what about you? Are the Whitecloaks gonna is the Whitecloaks is the band coming back together?
I don't know. We're gonna have to work on
Beatles. It's gonna be the Beatles, and
it might be in a little while. We'll have to see. Pips has got kids on the way, like another kid on the way. Alex is busy. Obviously, I'm actually busy. Aside from doing my writing, I'm actually fairly busy with work right now too. So no, we'll see. Maybe in some strange alternate universe in a couple of years we'll miss this show so much we might actually do rewatches of season 2. I just don't think my liver could handle it.
Didn't you guys try attempt to start season 2 and then you guys stopped or something?
Yeah, it was not healthy.
You did one episode and that was it, I think.
No, we recorded a couple, but then Pips had to go to like undisclosed location and other stuff. Like it just turned into a bit of a time, and it's difficult. And the thing is, there's literally no interest in this show anymore. even make fun of it, like the mission's accomplished. So no, we'll see. We'll see. I was trying to get the boys together to do a stream about the whole Lego scandal with Reckless Ben, but
man, that was great entertainment. I was so addicted.
It's still being done by like every Lawfare or LawTube channel and what, like it's still ongoing. I don't know what we could add to the conversation at this point, other than like a very I've watched it all, so I could probably give like a recap to the other guys about it, but I don't see the point. But yeah, I don't know.
A recap won't do the events justice.
I know. You kind of have to. You kind of have to go in for the whole 40 hours of various channels and shows about it. Like it's so good. But
speaking of Lego builds, have you bought any new Lego collections or something? Or are you building anything new?
Doing Warhammer stuff with my nephew, but that thankfully is like, God, that you don't want to dive down that rabbit hole either. That's a whole other can of worms as well.
I bought the original series Lego set for Star Trek.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
is that like a bridge set?
Yeah, it's a bridge set. The problem is, and I was listening to reviews of it. There's no bottom base plate.
Oh,
yeah.
You can probably buy a base plate for, but I'm surprised you haven't gotten the Enterprise D. It's only like $500. And it's like this big.
When I go back to working full time, I will probably pick that up. But I built my Sega thing. My Sega thing's back on my shelf. I got my Ocarina of Time one right there that I'm going to build when the remake comes out closer to November. So yeah.
I did buy more IKEA furniture, so I do have some more shelf space for my Legos.
Yeah, I don't know if you see it, but he has a Star Destroyer on top of his bookshelf, right behind him. So.
I've seen it. Let's see, like, although that's very cool.
Is that supposed to be the Executor by any chance?
Yeah, it's the Super Star Destroyer.
All right.
How much did that cost you?
500 Canadian in 2012. It's worth 2,000 Canadian now.
Oh, shit. Keep your Lego sets.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So here's the thing. When that whole Reckless Ben thing was going on, like Brian Mansell's dad, who did the whole Lego collection, was not wrong. A lot of these sets double in value as soon as they're out of production. And if you keep them in the boxes, keep them in the wrapping or whatever, you command the premium prices. The risk, however, with selling an expensive Lego collection like that is doing it via eBay or doing it kind of online. People will always claim, no, I never got it. Give me my money back. So there's tons of scams out there too about how to sell this, which is precisely why Brian Mansell went to Bricks and Minifigs to sell it. It was seen as the most safe way to actually sell it. Yeah, he had to pay the store 30% in consignment fees to sell it off, but there really is. Yeah, little did he know that guys like Josh Johnson and Brandon Best are out there. Sorry, we're going down a rabbit hole here, but yeah, that's $2,000 if I still had the box, which I don't think I do, and you probably have to take it apart and sort it. I do have the instruction set and everything, but then there's still all the risk about finding a willing seller and being able to transact in a safe way, where you basically get the money from them, they get all the product from you.
I got a question. So, like for instance, my Sega Genesis one came in there was 2 or 3 bags. Do you have to separate the bricks and figs in the same way that it came in, or can you just put them all in a Ziploc bag?
Not necessarily the same way that it came in, because that would be a lot of work. But I did buy a used set recently where they sorted it in bags by color, and that was at least helpful.
Oh, color? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. So, all right. Okay, cool. All right, well, thank you both for being here. This was a great stream. Love talking about the book, love talking about the writing stuff.
Well, I'm glad you liked it a lot. So no, it means a lot to me that earlier on people may have had more issues with it, but I mean, it's just a testament to how much help Amber has been for me. And going through the process is basically, I've heard really great things from friends who've read the draft after she's had her hand on it. So it's money well spent.
Yeah, there's there's the stuff with there's stuff I'm still looking forward to in the next volume. The stuff with the church and them covering stuff up. That was one thing that I thought was that I was out that, and of
Yeah.
course seeing
Never happens. No inspiration from real history with that one.
and about actually I was surprised we didn't see beyond the first scene we didn't see Baldwin again. You know, Charlotte's brother, the bishop. I thought we were going to see more of him. So
I honestly thought that too on my first read.
All right. Well,
he's not.
He's not dead, but duly noted. He's going to have to come back then.
Yeah, I'm like curious. Like, are we going to see like I do have a question. Are we going to see like now Charlotte wakes up and she, you know, her story ends, you know, where like everything has gone to hell. Do we get to see that whole gone to hell process? You know, whenever all the other characters are gone, Charlotte's kind of out of touch, or like from another point of view or something like that.
I'm gonna have to move Charlotte out of there pretty quick during that hellscape, because I know where the Eleanor story picks off. They kind of go back to the Drake Watch and kick some ass. So
yeah, because I'm curious. I'm curious what's going on in the Drake Watch.
Yeah,
obviously
in essence, what I've selected with a lot of my characters is they're all going in different directions. Okay. So Charlotte's going to go south, William's going to go east, Richard's going to go west, Henry and Eleanor are going to kind of stay in the area or go north a little bit.
Poor Henry.
Are you going to wait until Volume 2 is done before you share it with beta readers?
Yeah. So I'm going to do the whole run with Amber of the 5 subsequent volumes, and then get kind of beta reader influence. So
are we gonna be waiting 16 years like Winds of Winter or something for Volume 2?
You're writing pretty quickly.
No, I haven't. It only seems quickly to Amber because she doesn't realize that I spent like 4 years writing Volume 1 before I even brought her involved.
Well, no, but even who are you writing right now? Because I've got Eleanor.
I'm writing the second POV, so it's second POV of like chapter 6 or so. So it's not that. That's
still pretty good.
So yeah, I remember you said
I'm behind schedule. That I remember you said if work does well, and maybe I can make a bunch of money, maybe I can quit my job and write full time. But I'm not going to do that quite yet. So
okay,
and don't tell my boss I said that. Exactly.
You know, chapter a week is pretty good.
I'm not nowhere near that.
Yeah. I'm with Alex there. Good things take time.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right. And there's Ollie. Hi, Ollie.
Yeah, he's been bugging me.
Ollie's such a.
He's so cute.
Ollie's such a sweetheart. So yeah.
So fluffy.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, for me, been meaning to do a Star Trek project. It's the 60th anniversary. It's definitely not going to be out by the time the anniversary happens, which is September 8th, which is when they aired the Man Trap in the 60s. That's one of the salt creature of the original series. But yeah, the 60 years. So I bought a few. Excuse me. I bought a few reference books. I want to do a Star Trek retrospective, the original series. And
I have to rewatch. I haven't rewatched the original series in years.
Season 1 is still my favorite Star Trek season of all time. And a lot of people would disagree with that. Yeah. Yeah. I love all the episodes from that season. I love even the one there was an episode called This Side of Paradise that was basically a play on the Lotus Eaters section of the Odyssey. And they made a whole episode based on that. And they made the characters just like, lazy.
Every time my family rewatches The Next Generation, like every year, it just cycles through the household. And it'll just be on TV. You walk by and you're like, oh man, I like this episode. I'll just sit and watch it. Every time that it's on, I think to myself, man, if I'm ever writing, and I'm like blocked on something, I would just watch Star Trek and get ideas. There's so many plots, so many interesting, weird ideas. Like that's honestly, nothing is completely original. You can start out with something and come up with an excellent idea from just probably, what was the other show? What was it, the two brothers, and they go ghost hunting, and they have the car. Oh my gosh, why is it not in my head? Come on.
Grimm?
No. come on,
Dukes
it's a
of
modern.
Hazzard.
No, it's a modern TV show. It went for like a really long time. Dean and the Winchester brothers. Come on.
Oh, Supernatural.
Yes, Supernatural. Like, okay, there's a lot of shows that had like they were episodic, like, but they'll give you some really cool ideas. Watch them and come up with some ideas. There you go.
And steal them like I do.
Well, you
Or-
get
and
inspiration
don't-
for them.
And don't do what current Star Trek or new Trek does. And they're like, oh,
Exactly.
what are we going to do? Let's make an episode where we have a transport accident and we'll turn our characters into Muppets. Did you see that? They
What?
No, but I
There's an
did see Tuvix, and with that, I think we should stop.
Tuvix, yeah, Voyager, yeah, that was terrible. But then they literally did in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. They did an episode where there's a transporter accident, and from what people have been saying online on social media, that the episode was just kind of, hey, let's just turn our characters into Muppets just for the sake of it, just to be cute, but with no
No purpose or theme,
no purpose
like
or
thematic
substance.
exploration.
Yeah, and that's why I don't watch new. That's why I don't watch New Trek, is because it doesn't have any of that. Why
Oh.
should I watch your crap if you're not gonna be serious about writing an episode that has something interesting to say? You know,
The Orville had interesting stuff to say in some episodes. That was
Yeah,
surprising.
the Orville is more like Trek than Trek is nowadays.
Yeah.
But anyway.
yeah.
All right. I do have
Yeah.
to run, guys. So
Thanks for
All
having
right.
me on. This was fun.
yeah.
All right.
thanks, man. I appreciate you reading the book and appreciate you liking it and giving me positive feedback. It's always great.
All right. Well, no, thank you for sharing this. I would definitely I can't wait to read volume 2. And everybody, take care. Subscribe to the Sword and the Pen. And even though the Whitecloaks don't do anything, subscribe to the Whitecloaks. They might do something eventually, you know. And then just once again, everybody, just explore new horizons. Find interesting things to enjoy them, and that's all I'm going to say. So everybody, good night, stay safe, have a good weekend, take care.